With Chinese New Year next week, Colombo is taking on the festive spirit to welcome the year of the wood snake. At Cinnamon Life, the Chinese embassy brought in some invigorating performances of the Peking opera, a variety of famed Chinese martial arts and classical dance troupes with some pomp and pageantry thrown in. While Cinnamon Lakeside added a Chinese food festival into the mix, a gastronomic journey of Szechuan fare with special dishes crafted by renowned celebrity chef Lan Ming Lu and some energetic traditional acts punctuating the evening's festivities. With that very exciting start to Chinese New Year here, welcome to Kaleidoscope with Savithri Rodrigo. Ahead of the show, what we don't know about corruption in the private sector, the way back to 2021 and the resurgence of Cheers. Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Do subscribe, follow and like us if you like more. To our wonderful partners on the show, Srilanka Live, CDB and The Daily Morning. Thank you for your support, always.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids and EV vehicles.
And here's the week that was on CDB Snapshot. Sri Lanka's Purchasing Managers Index for manufacturing hits 57.2 points in December, showing a further expansion in manufacturing activities. The central bank says Sri Lanka will see a drain of $1.36 billion in foreign currency assets in 2025. 2024's tea production reaches a 3-year high. Tea crop shoots up by 2.4% year-on-year to 262.15 million kilos. Oxfam reveals that Elon Musk's wealth will cross the $1 trillion mark in just under 5 years. Champagne goes flat in France as sales drop by nearly 10% in 2024. Emirates Airlines will soon become the world's first autism-certified airline.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome to Srilanka Life News Capsule. As we step into a much-touted transformative year, the numbers are looking good, or are they? Is 2021 inevitable? A regular columnist and one who analyzes the current environment with great focus, Professor of Chemical and Process Engineering at the University of Moratuwa, Professor Ajith de Alwis, delves deeper into why Sri Lanka may be headed into another 2021. You've just said that another 2021 is inevitable for Sri Lanka. Why?
Well, what I said is that if we go on working like this the way we are doing, it's inevitable. The business as usual, the type of thing, is not going to be right for us. You know, we have a $50+ billion debt payment, external debt. Forget the internal debt for the moment. The country may have been taken to the salon and we had a little bit of a haircut, but that doesn't mean we have been out of the woods. We have been given a breathing space and we need to identify ways of getting some cash flow, solid stuff. That is missing still.
How should we position our economy and what fundamentals need to be in place? I mean, if we are going to not just service the debt, but make economic progress.
One is technology. Mind you, this is what Sri Lanka has been lacking for the last 76 years. So I'm not talking about for this change. We have been very poor in technology integration. The second, we need to work on innovation. That mindset of innovation, that is doing things that are different, also doing things differently, what we are doing. And to me, those are like fundamentals. Technology need to come in. I'm not referring to like having the mobile phone, having the top of the class car means technology. That's not what I'm referring to. All the segments we have not infused technology in. That is neat. And second is that mindset, let's do things differently.
What challenges are you seeing in actually pursuing what you just said? What is dangerous ground?
Two things. The issue of climate change. I think this is seriously forgotten that we are facing an existential threat, right? So climate change. We are never factoring that in. We're not discussing about it at all. That's number one. Second is geopolitics. We believe that all of the outsiders are going to help us and we can overcome any issue. That's not going to be. We need to understand these scenarios. We are very poor in scenario planning as well.
So 2025 has been spoken of as a transformational year for Sri Lanka. What do you think should be done this year? What are the priorities?
You know, in Sri Lankans, we have been enduring a significant percentage of our income is spent on food, right? Sri Lanka, maybe about 60% now, maybe even more, right? Now, a country like US or Europe, you're talking about 13% to 15%. Now, to me, a single measure of my work would be getting this 57 to 60%, having a map to reduce it to this 13-15%. I have a lot of disposable income that way, right? Now, this is the single problem. The point I'm stressing is when you address that, you address multiple things, you gain in multiple directions, and we should do that.
And here's our market sketch this week. After a bout of profit taking last week, the oil share price index continued upward to record-breaking highs with higher than normal turnover levels as well. Oil prices fell to $82 per barrel on the news that the new US administration declared a US energy emergency, calling for higher US oil output and a high possibility of halting current US purchases of Venezuelan oil. Gold soared to a 2-month high, now at $2,750 per ounce, as the US dollar weakened amid uncertainty surrounding US President Donald Trump's potential tariffs. The Sheesh Mahal in Jaipur is a restaurant that uses no electricity, just candles and mirrors to illuminate the restaurant. Talk about mood lighting.
Someone has to give for another to take. That's the underlying premise in Bribery and Corruption, which recently Transparency International Sri Lanka put under the microscope. The research looks at the role the private sector plays in facilitating corruption, something that has long been ignored. This study is possibly the first time in Sri Lanka's private sector's history that corruption has been illustrated through alleged experiences and examples. With me today was the team lead of that research team. She's the former program manager, private sector of Transparency International Sri Lanka, Nicole Elias. What is the main reason for corruption to perpetuate within the private sector?
What we're seeing through the report is there is no one answer fits all. It would really depend on which sector you're working in, which level you are in within the company. So the higher you are, the less chances you would have to see corruption happening or be approached with a bribe, for example. But always it's the entry-level staff, the ones who have to face are going to the government departments that could be asked for a bribe. They are at higher risk. So that's what we've tried to capture here to kind of find those institutions. But also we'd see that when you take within the private sector, so company to company, it might be at a much more senior level that they're colluding, very knowingly colluding with other companies. For example, if there's a government tender happening, you say, okay, I'm going to bid this much, you bid this much, let's split the profits of the subcontract to each other. So we could see that kind of corruption happening as well.
So let's look at the other side. Has the private sector actually put in any measures to combat bribery and corruption?
It has been done by companies, but also by chambers of commerce, which is really great. So one good thing that a lot of companies do is having this good anti-corruption policy. But something we always say is having an anti-corruption policy doesn't mean anything if you don't ensure that everyone in your company understands it, from the lowest level of staff to the janitorial staff, right? If you're expecting everyone to follow the same rules and regulations, you need to ensure the policy is available in the local languages. You need to ensure you're doing trainings, and several companies have done this already. They've engaged in ABC trainings, anti-bribery and corruption trainings, awareness programs. Some have done even screensaver campaigns where they put out slogans. So it's constantly reminding you of what needs to happen. And also, I think what a lot of companies have done, which is great, which is showing through, is setting that tone from the top. Some chambers of commerce have introduced policies, so the members have to sign on to these policies to be a member. So those are some of the great initiatives that have been done in order to mitigate corruption.
So, what do you think needs to be done to nip corruption in the bud?
The idea of eradicating corruption is something we might not see in our lifetime. It might be in our children's or our children's lifetime, because it's something that happens everywhere. We need to start with ourselves as well. So if all of us are pointing fingers at the private sector, the public sector, saying, "Oh, they are corrupt, they are the big problem," and if you go and bribe the police officer to get out of a speeding ticket, you're not really helping the problem either. And corruption in Sri Lanka is so normalized that it's it's almost hard to get out of it. So teaching your kids at home about what's right and wrong, in schools, making them understand. We don't even have, ethics or integrity or like law that's taught in school. Those things are important to learn, because changing a certain generation now might not work, but we can start young and perpetuate that. But I would say we need to also start with ourselves. So I would say that's the change we need to look for.
So, Nicole, after publishing this study, what is your verdict? Is there still hope for us, or are we beyond redemption?
There is always hope. I like to be a little more optimistic. I know some people might have a more cynical view. We often get asked when doing trainings or workshops, corruption can't be eradicated, you're wasting your time. And then I say, you know what, we've been doing this for a long time and we have seen incremental changes. Even if you take the Aragale that happened, we saw citizens coming together and understanding the power they hold. They asked for a change, a system change. They wanted to eradicate corruption. That was something that came from the people. We've been talking about it for years, but it was so nice to see that people have also understood the importance of this. If you take a country like Thailand, for example, there is this initiative called the Private Sector Coalition Against Corruption. It was an initiative that it started with 23 companies. They got together. They decided, you know what? It's difficult to operate in such a corrupt market. Just a few of us will get together, we'll try to do something. So they started off with just 23 companies. They came up with policies that they should all follow, guidelines that they should all adhere to. And now it has over 1,000 companies in Thailand that have joined. And they're expanding and they're doing really well. So if it could happen in a country like Thailand, which has a similar systemic corruption context to Sri Lanka, it can definitely happen here. We have tried establishing such kind of a coalition. We have something called the Business Integrity Club, which we recently started, which has about 20 odd companies. They're hoping to expand as well. So that would be an opportunity for private sector companies to come together to work towards this goal of fighting corruption. There is hope for the private sector for sure in Sri Lanka. There's hope for a corruption-free Sri Lanka. It just won't happen tomorrow for sure. It'll take definitely a long time, but we are hopeful that we get to it.
Cinnamon Grand has been doing some exciting things recently.
The poolside breeze bar got a fresh look and a new bar with some great music vibes last week, with days and nights by the poolside proving to be fun and exciting. But that's not all. The much-loved Cheers pub has moved. Now on the lobby level of Cinnamon Grand, Cheers is looking more vibrant than ever, but retaining that same iconic spirit that made Cheers so beloved.
With opening of Cinnamon Life, we wanted to kind of consolidate our food and beverage offerings for the city.
With a contemporary design by David Grace Design House in Singapore and a hearty menu that embraces hallmark British pub fare with a large selection of wines, spirits, craft beers and signature cocktails to wash it down, a pool table for some action and live music every night to keep your toes tapping, Cheers is all about getting together and keeping the spirit alive.
We wanted to move Cheers from its original location to a new location, which offers you actually a bigger space, but also enhanced Cheers experience. Cheers has been a community place for the last 25 years plus, and we wanted to maintain the community, and it was a tough task, I think. But everyone who has come here after the reopening of Cheers, we have got really good positive comments, and we are seeing a new clientele coming in. So that was the whole idea, maintaining the good old Cheers crowd and getting a new set of people coming and experiencing this community space.
So let's get some cheers in. and we'll be back next week.